Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife video for you. Today, we have not a battle to the death and not anything like that. This isn't going to be like a score to pick a winner. This is more just kind of consumer advice, I guess you'd call it, between the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, or the PM2 as we all call it, and the Spyderco Para 3. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is the most common email question I get, the most common YouTube comment I get, the most common message I get on Facebook, all kinds of stuff. What should I get? I want my first really higher end Spyderco. Should I get a PM2 or a Para 3? It's two of their more popular models in this price range. You're looking at $140 starting out for a PM2 versus like 130. Was it 133 for a Para 3? And it's a very common question I get. So this is kind of just going to show the differences, what's different, what's the same, how I feel about them personally, just my personal opinions. This is kind of like a long version of what I would say if I was working at a knife counter in a store and somebody came up and asked me that question. So I hope this is going to be useful to everybody. I'm doing this right now because these two are identical. These are Knife Center exclusives, which are both currently out of stock, but it's Knife Center. I wouldn't be surprised if they came back again. But these are both the polished G10 crew wear versions. Both are indicative of how many freaking versions of this knife you can get. They come, both of these knives. The PM2 definitely probably has the most because it's been out the longest. I think the PM2 probably has more sprint runs, dealer exclusives, all that stuff than anything else, but the Para 3 is catching up, and now it's almost guaranteed whenever somebody does a sprint or an exclusive of the PM2, the Para 3 follows very shortly thereafter. For example, right now, a lot of places have just restocked the distributor exclusive, so lots of places have them, but it's a fairly limited run of the brown G10 handles with the S35VN, and the Para 3 immediately came out right after. You can get the Para 3 now in a few places with the brown handles and the S35VN steel. You can get a bazillion different versions. I'm going to use these two because they are identical looking pretty much, and we're going to talk more about the base versions. The base version is black G10 handles with S30V steel for both of them. Those are 140 and like 133 respectively, and that's about the price difference you expect to see between one and the other, $7 to $10, something like that. Usually the Para 3 is a little bit less expensive because there's a little bit less materials because it's smaller, but your standard ones that are usually in production are those, the base ones, an S110V version with the blurple handles, and you can get them in blacked out blades, Digicam scales, and the S30V. Those are your kind of usual standard production ones, but man, if you look around, there's a million different versions of it, and you can kind of find pretty much whatever you want. And if you don't like that, you can always find aftermarket stuff. So yeah, I will point out before somebody else points out in the comments, this is just to avoid comments, these two are the same but slightly different. They're both Knife Center exclusives with the quote-unquote polished G10 they call it, or smooth G10 they call it. The PM2 that I got was an earlier one, and it's very smooth, very slick. The Para 3, this was nicely donated by a viewer. It's a little rougher, and not really in feel, but it doesn't have quite the same shine. I don't know if that's just a production inconsistency or if it's something they decided to do, because like I said, the PM2 was first, this came later, and some people were upset about how slick these were. Maybe they roughened them up a little bit just to make people happy. I don't know what the story is there, but just before anybody says anything in the comments, they are pretty much freaking identical in specs. So let's get into it. As I said, the PM2 has been around for a very long time. I did an ode to the PM2 video. I will make sure to link at the end of this. When you see those little pop-up things, I'll make sure that's one that's linked on here. It is one of Spyderco's most stalwart models. I mean, for certain, it is, as I said, more sprint runs and all that stuff than anything. They've been making it a long time. It was on my list of top 5 all-time EDC knives. It's just a great knife. Everybody loves it, and for very, very good reason. But it is a 3.5-inch blade. It has and that's an issue for some people, and it has been and with different laws changing and stuff, it's become more of an issue, I would say, for lots of people. So logically, they introduced the Para 3, which is smaller, 3-inch blade. Very, very, very similar design. About the only construction difference you can see is that, the stop pin is not screwed in. It's just, pinned in. Well, it's not like pinned in, but it still comes apart, but it's just stuck in there that way. Where on the other one, you have a bit bigger stop pin that's screwed in. Other than that, really, construction-wise, there's almost no difference. It's just a shrunken Para 3. The Para 3 is a shrunken PM2. This is going to be a very confusing video for me auditorially. Is that a phrase? It is now. Both have the large lanyard holes, which we'll talk a lot more about that. Both are compression locks. Both are very fun to flip and play around with. Both can do all of the different Spyderco deployment methods. They're both just very fun knives to fiddle with. I like them. I like them both. I particularly like one more than the other. We'll get to that at the end, but that's me. As far as looks go, the PM2 is not okay. Neither of these are pretty. No one, I don't think, has ever said, "Oh, that's a beautiful knife," about a PM2 or a Para 3. Maybe some people have, but I've never heard it. I don't care I'm not in love with the looks at either of them, but definitely I think the PM2 looks a lot better, and that's a function. It's kind of just a product of the design philosophy. Is they basically took the PM2 and they just shrunk it, and it kind of squished. And I just don't care for the looks of the Para 3 as much as the PM2, but I'm not in love with either of them, so I would call that kind of a wash. I don't think anybody's buying either of these for the looks, so kind of wipe that out of your mind. It is, and as far as like looks and collectability go, as I said, I think they're pretty even. There are more. I call the PM2 a bit more collectible right now, just because there's more versions, because it's been out for longer. But the Para 3 is catching up. If you are just buying stuff, now to collect, buying new production stuff to collect, there's probably currently just as many variations of the Para 3 out as there are of the PM2. Secondary market, there's going to be more PM2s because they've been out for longer. And both of them, different versions on the secondary market, get silly money. Just silly money sometimes, for especially like the red M390 of the PM2. There was a blue M390 of this through I can't remember the name of the website now. It lost me. But both of those just get silly money on the secondary market. And there are some people that only collect these two knives or one of these two knives, and that's all they collect, because you can have, there's a guy on Instagram I saw the other day. He had a picture of like a dozen, I think it was like a dozen Para 3s in different configurations that he just wanted them all. And they're both really fun that way to chase down, and they're a great knife, so you don't feel bad buying them, especially if you get them at retail initially. They're awesome that way. As far as the blades on them, they are very, very, very similar. I measured the thickness behind the edge. They're both about 20 thousandths, both 0.14 inch blade stock, both slice about the same. You just have more blade on the PM2. That's really the only difference. They're both going to cut identically. You're not going to be able to tell the difference other than, the length of the blade. So that's just kind of up to you, which you need. I do live in an area where if I go in downtown Rochester, I'm only supposed to carry a 3-inch blade. So yeah, the Para 3 gets some use there. It's a great knife for when I go there. And I think I might actually be doing some stuff. Sometimes I have to do some work at the studio, and if I'm actually doing work, this is a knife that I will reach for sometimes. Yeah, but the PM2 is one that when I don't have to care about length restrictions, I'll grab that. So yeah, as far as the ergonomics go, they're also both shockingly more equal than you would think. The PM2 is super comfortable. You can choke up on it, which is really nice on a knife this size. And they both have a very similar kind of thumb rampy feel. They both work really, really good. But the PM2 does feel a bit bigger. But you know what? Not dramatically so. It's not a huge change when you switch to the Para 3. It really isn't. Yeah, my fingers are a little closer to the edge, but I can still fit all 4 fingers on here without choking up with no problem whatsoever. So that's really not a dramatic change ergonomically between the two. It really is. I can feel the pocket clip a bit more on that. We'll talk about that pocket clip a lot more in a moment. But yeah, and ergonomically, they're pretty much even. I wouldn't say to go buy the PM2 just because you think it's going to be more comfortable, because unless you have really big hands. If you have big XL thick hands, I have large size gloves but skinny fingers. If you have big XL thick hands, then yes, the PM2. But anything other than that, they're going to be kind of a wash ergonomically. They really are. They're both excellent. They both work very well that way. As I said, deployment-wise too, as far as, flippy and fidget factor and all that stuff, they're both also pretty even. It's they're even in many ways, but one way they are not even is in the carry. And this is where you expect me to say the larger knife carries worse, but I'm not. The larger knife carries better with the stock clip. So as you can see on the PM2, the stock clip is put beside the very large, and in my opinion, too large lanyard tube, but it's kind of become a Spyderco thing on the PM2 and the Para 3. I get why. Maybe it was a heritage thing or something where they wanted to keep it on there. But on the Para 3, since it's a bit smaller handle, they moved the clip down here. And so I'm going to line these up even on this line here. Yeah, there's more knife sticking out on the smaller one than there is on the bigger one. This is not the clip that I use on this knife at all. I've never used it before. I pulled it out just for the review. Luckily, the previous owner sent along, this is a Casey Lynch clip. This is actually meant for a PM2. Casey Lynch does make a specific Para 3 that if you still want to use the Gigundus lanyard tube, you can. MXG Gear also makes one now that's cut like that. But just to show you, yeah, this is how it is with the standard, with the Casey Lynch clip, or with the MXG Gear clip is very, very similar. Yeah, and I think it's an automatic purchase. I think you must buy the deep carry clip when you buy this. It's not only just a matter of how much knife you want visible. I think on the Para 3, my old Blurple one, I did carry it a bit with the standard clip. It came out of my pocket a couple times because there was so much sticking out. It would catch on stuff, and or I'd sit down and it would pop out. And yeah, I don't think it's just a matter of optics. It's a matter of it stays in your pocket better. I'm not going to say the clip on that was so bad it's like dangerous. It just didn't just come like flying out, but a couple times I did sit down and it was barely still in my pocket, where I've never had that in the PM2. This is the stock clip. I have had deep carry clips on this before. I've had this for quite a while. I swapped around different ones, but I also put them on other Spydercos because they use the pretty standard pattern. And you know what? But usually I just wind up going back to the standard clip because it's fine. If I had more clips, I would probably use the deep carry on this too. I am going to order the real Para 3 clip for this, and then when I have that, I'll put this on here on the PM2, but it's just because I have it. It's not something I felt like I had to buy. Because on a kind of working knife like this, I don't mind a little bit sticking out. It is kind of nice to have something to grab a hold of when you're wearing gloves or something like that. But on the Para 3, it's an immediate purchase. So I've always said, whenever you price out a Para 3, if you're going to use it, add $20 to the cost, because that's what you're going to pay to get a decent deep carry clip for it. 20, 25, something like that. So just add that to the cost, which is unfortunate. And this started a trend for Spyderco. I know that the Brower is even worse. I don't know what's going on with Spyderco. That they invented the pocket clip and they can't remember how to put one in the right place. It's just kind of a thing that's happening lately. But that's really kind of the only really huge downside to the Para 3. I will say one Para 3 variant, which I have not mentioned yet, that I'm extremely excited about, and I've pre-ordered in 2 different places. They are coming with a lightweight version of this, which is FRN handles, the wire clip, which is great, really small, if if any, lanyard tube. I can't remember. It's a much better clip. And it's still a compression lock in FRN, which is going to be really cool. I'm really excited to see that BD1N steel. And I would assume that there's a PM2 version of that coming at some point. I would not be surprised at all to see that like SHOT Show or something, but who knows? But I am excited about that version, and that is one advantage the Para 3 has. Once that version is out, I will say, yeah, you can't get the PM2 in a lightweight, and you can the Para 3. For now, anyway. But we'll see. So what does all this rambling mean? I'm just trying to point out differences, but what would I choose? I would choose the PM2. Unless you're really in love with this design and you really want something in this line, I think in 3-inch, I think for my uses, Spyderco makes some stuff better. I would prefer a Sage 5. I've done a comparison video, so that this is not shocking news. Similar price, similar steel, the Taichung made, blah, 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 wire clip, blah, 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 blah. But this is probably a more heavy-duty knife than that. They both have the same strengths and weaknesses. They both have excellent ergonomics. They both are very fun to fiddle with. They both have very good blades. They both have fairly thin tips, which are great for some reasons, bad for others. People do snap off PM2 and Para 3 tips. I'm not going to say with a regularity, but I have seen it more than a few times. Both, I think, are some of the best priced Spydercos. Some Spydercos do get a bit astronomical. Some are completely ridiculous. I think these are pretty good, even in the basic S30V versions. I think they're pretty good. I think the S110V versions are priced even better. But they're both awesome knives. It's just, it is kind of what your needs are. If I didn't have a need to have a 3-inch knife sometimes, not sure I'd have a Para 3. I prefer the PM2, but it's mostly just that pocket clip thing. It's really not a huge difference, and the looks. But people have fallen in love with the Para 3. Absolutely. It is unequivocally a huge hit for them. So I cannot argue with that at all. Can't argue with the sales numbers. But I hope you guys have found this informative and not just an 18-minute ramble about nothing, because I tried to give some good consumer advice. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.